And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Today we're taking a look at Zen Garden. Zen Garden. You ever go to the store and see one of those and then you rake the sand and you say, this is really stupid. How does this make anybody relaxed? And, oh, that's pretty cool. And then you do it for like 10 minutes, so the guy at the store says, seriously, you need to go. And you said, but don't, okay, well anyhow, Zen Garden is about building a garden. It's a game that has tiles in which you're going to place and build gardens, and you're trying to build patterns. So it's kind of like a mix of Carcassonne and Tetris. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Let me show you the game. There are two rules in the set. There's the Zen Garden rules and there is the Rock Garden rules. Both rules are going to use some of the same concept. There are 4 types of tiles in the garden. There's grass, trees, water, and rock. Although there is a 5th type, this is the lanterns. These lanterns are not actually any of the types. They're basically a wild and convenient any type. So if it's next to rock, it's rock. If it's next to rock and water, then it's a part of both groups. And so when you put these on the table, you'll be forming a group. For example, this is a group of 3 rocks. And each of these tiles has 2 sides. The front side shows what type of tile it is, but the back side also shows a couple more features on it. The top part is not used in the basic game, the Zen Garden rules. Just the pattern is. Patterns are always made up of 6 tiles, and think of them as like Tetris type shapes. So there's those tiles put together in that shape. So in the basic game, you'll draw some tiles, and on your turn, we'll start with a lantern tile in the middle of the table, and players are going to take turns placing a tile and drawing tiles. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to make a group match this pattern. So let's say, for example, someone managed to get the pattern here with these water tiles. So they have this pattern. And it doesn't really matter how the pattern is rotated. But here it is, exactly like it is. So on my turn, I can reveal this if this happens twice on the table. It needs to happen twice in 2 different groups. When that happens, I'll score 5 points, plus bonus points. There's bonus points if there's no lantern part of the groups. You'll get bonus points because most of the time you will be using lantern tiles. And everybody else is going to score 4 points when that happens. You get 5 plus your bonuses, everyone else gets 4. However, each turn after that, they lose a point unless they can finish it on that turn. So usually the first person out is going to win, although you can play an extended game and just keep, play to 20 points, and so as soon as one game's over, you score points for the next game. And if you match multiple groups, you can win, but it's harder. Again, it's usually the first person out. So that's the basic game. Play a tile, draw a tile. In the Rock Garden rules, which are the rules I prefer, the game will start like the first game with a lantern. Everyone actually gets a lantern in this game, but that's all you get other than a handful of tiles. On your turn, you will always play 1 tile. Then you're going to get up to 2 more actions that you can take, and you do not have to take them. Depending on how many actions you take is how many tiles you will draw at the end of your turn. If you take no actions, then you're going to draw 3 tiles. If you take 1 action, you draw 2. If you take 2 actions, then you only draw 1 tile. And when you draw, you can draw from these 3 face-up tiles here, or you can draw from the bag. Now, the actions that you can take are playing another tile into the garden. In this game, as well as the last game, whenever you play a tile in the garden, you're allowed to play a tile where the lantern is and then move the lantern adjacent to that group somewhere else. And so that will happen often. And again, you're trying to make patterns, but in this game, you're making them for a different reason. I said that these numbers weren't used in the basic game, but in this game they are used. At the top of each tile, there is a number and there is a type. Now that type is not the same as the tile itself. This allows me to play a token of my choice, and the game comes with cubes, yay cubes, for each of the players. So they'll have cubes of their color, and you'll place one of those in any group that is either exactly the size of the number, here 5, or that is the type shown, here grass. So this one will let me put it on any white group or any number I want. However, the number can never exceed 5. And that includes for the colors too. So if I put in a water group, that water group cannot exceed 5. Once any group goes over 5, no more tokens can be placed in it, period. So I will discard one of these tiles and then place a token out in a group. The only other thing I can do then is I can play one of these tiles, and if I ignore everything at the top and just am looking to see if that shape is shown on the board. If so, I will score points if I have a control marker in that group. If I do, then I will score points for that group depending on how many lantern tiles are part of that group. When I score points, I will take these tokens and put them in a point pile. The game is going to be over when all my tokens are gone, whether on the board or in a point pile, and somebody scores 6 points. And at that point, whoever has the most points is the winner. There's some other optional rules. One that I like is that if you match, when you put out in a group, if you match the number and the type, so if I put this in a group of 5 water tiles, then you can add 2 tokens of your choice on the board, or you can replace somebody else's token with your own, which I think is, adds some flair to how the game is played. And so that's how you play the Rock Garden rules. The simplistic game is just that, simple. And if you're trying to teach people to play games, not a bad one to teach, but really I enjoy the other game much more. Now I wasn't sure. The game kind of had a look to it. And then I looked at the rules. Oh, it's playing tiles, but it's really interesting, and it can be really thinky. So you have a mixture of a bit of area control. You have a bit of mixture of playing tiles down and trying to form shapes, and then knowing when to best play a tile. And you're watching what your opponents are building. Maybe that you're helping them build their shape with yours. When to move the wild ones. Now, all of this is not that many decisions, but it is more thinky than I thought. I mean, there were many times I sat there and said, okay, what do I do now? Oh, okay, and if I use this tile, and that's the thing that will get you. You want to use a tile for all 3 things on it. So you can't. So then you draw the tiles, but when you draw the tiles, you're not necessarily sure what's on the back of those tiles. And so they really packed a lot. Now this is the second fun fair game that I played that seemed simple on the onset, but inside was really quite chewy. A lot going on in there. So if you like games where you're trying to build patterns and solve, you have a pattern that you're trying to get and you're building it with everybody else, you will really enjoy this. There's even a bit of, not area control, but as you put down these tokens, and it's not that long of a game because, after you score a certain amount of points, you want to score quickly, but sometimes scoring cleanly is better. In which case, there's no wilds, and you can get 3 points that way. That's halfway to victory to some, you can pull off a lot, but it's also a lot harder to do. So it's an interesting game. It's one of those games that is a little harder for me to describe the feelings I get from playing it than to play it with you. Kind of like the Zen rake. It looks dumb pulling that rake, but when you do it, it feels peaceful. I don't know why. I don't know that I would call this game peaceful, but certainly it was not the feeling I was expecting. I was expecting a game that was, all right, put some tiles down, and instead I was like, whoa, what should I do next? So, a very likable game, and one that you should certainly give a try.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.
Shut that door!
There.